Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome to the Alpenglow Industries Solder Sesh. I'm Carrie Sundra. There will be no soldering tonight because it's the Build-a-Blob Workshop. Woo! And I have Debra Ansell joining me. and she is GeekMomProjects on Twitter and Instagram. And she is who started this blob madness. So but before we kind of like get into introductions and stuff, oh, hello, Liz. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I was just going to give like a little bit of background for kind of like what the purpose is. So these are the blobs that you can see, and you know, one of the things that I want to do is introduce more people to electronics who haven't necessarily thought about using electronics before. And you know, I happen to know a lot of knitters through being a knitter myself and also making yarn tools for yarn dyers. And so, you know, I always think it's kind of fun to combine electronics and textiles. And, you know, it's nice to have projects that are really good entry points into like just starting to like work with electronics just a little bit. And I think that this one is excellent because like all you need are one of these LED strands, and you can just get them on Amazon. You can get 50, 100 or 200 strand LEDs from I think like $8 to $16-ish. And they already have like these patterns built in, like the one that's on my table right now is using a built-in pattern, and you can just cycle through them and find one that you like that fits your mood, and like there you go. And all you have to do is actually like make the structure of the blob. But for people who are a bit more into electronics and more advanced, it's still pretty fun because you can modify it and hack it and do all sorts of cool things. And we'll be getting into that like later on in the live stream tonight. So we're hoping to have like a little bit of stuff for everyone. Oh, hello, Brittany. Yay, thank you for joining us. And yeah, so we'll be getting into like doing stuff to make them sound reactive and programming them yourselves and different microcontrollers and stuff that you can use to do that with a bit later. Hey, Mom has joined us. Oh, hey, I got to show off something from Mom real quick. Here we go. I've been waiting for this. So my mom has been making quilts. And she made us this amazing quilt for the shop. Isn't it cool? It's super cool. Thank you, Mom. We still have to buy a thing to hang it up with, but we're super excited about it. We really love it. Thank you. So yeah, it's a circuit board quilt, and I can get it a little closer so you can see the background fabric. It's all cool circuit board fabric. Yay!
So amazing.
Cool. Okay. Slight quilt segue. Back to blobs. Blobs. So yeah, so like the first half will basically be, we're gonna like get right into starting up your blob and making your blob and the different ways that I do it versus the different ways that Debra does it. Debra's on this side. And she uses a zip tie method. I use a knit method because like that's what makes sense to me. And we'll first start into those so that people can like get started and you know, be doing something while we chat more about electronics and fun LEDs and making colorful things. So yay. All right. I think that's like my intro section. I will now introduce Debra.
Bye.
So it's a pleasure of meeting. She's GeekMomProjects on Twitter and Instagram, and makes amazing things and teaches like a lot of kids how to code and beginning code. And yeah, I'll let you take it away, Debra.
Oh, thanks, Carrie. Yeah, I've started actually. I might be muted, or can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're a little bit low. Volume's a little bit low, but
all right, I will speak more directly. So yeah, I really appreciated what you said about encouraging people to get started with electronics, because while I have a tech background, you know, I didn't know much about electronics at all, and I actually came at it through an LED wearables lens. I first started getting into electronics, I coached my son's robotics team and I thought it looked cool, but somebody introduced me to Arduino, and the first thing I gravitated towards was the Arduino LilyPad, which is sewable LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really great way to learn about circuits, and because LEDs are, are fairly straightforward electronically to wire. It's just, for a dumb LED, not addressable. It's just, powered on, just make sure the current's not too high and it goes. And it's so easy to control and it makes things look so good. It was such a great way for me to kind of work my way into electronics. And I've done far more complicated projects in kind of the last 12 years, but I always go back to LEDs and wearables because they're so much fun. So yeah, it's a great entree for everybody. I'm excited to do this. I'm excited to do this project that doesn't require any tech whatsoever. My mom, hi mom,
yay, all the moms are here.
My mom, who is a avowed technophobe, is watching and will be making her own blog today. I'm very excited.
Yes. Cool. Boy, hello to everybody else too. Hello, Jason, and hello, Tracy and Barb, and hello, Bob.
Yeah.
Hello.
And Solaro too, down there.
Yes, that's Bob.
Thank you. Okay. Good to know.
I get tongue-tied with Swirl for some reason half the time, so yeah.
All right. So if you want to launch into, I don't know if you want to start because you don't.
Sure.
Oh, shall I? Whatever. What do you think?
That doesn't matter. I can go ahead and start. I'm using this 100 light LED strand, and so you'll notice that it comes also with the remote, so that you can remote control changing the patterns and stuff, which I think is pretty cool. And I'm just going to set that out of the way for right now. And yeah, then you basically have the entire thing right here. So the strand of LEDs here and USB. I think I'm going to move Blob out of the way for a little bit. Maybe Blob can be in the corner here looking on. And then I will try and get us a little bit closer here. There we go. So it's a little difficult. I might try to mess with my lighting a little bit because it's maybe if we put a dark background, that's better.
It's pretty clear on my screen
because it's also shiny. So yeah, first this is all like twist tied together. So I undo the twist ties here. And we're starting from the USB end. So you can just kind of like leave this to the side a bit and start with the LED end. So I'm showing instructions for how I start with the knitted version. And I know that if you're a knitter, you would probably start by like doing some sort of a cast on and things like that. But we don't actually do that here because we can cheat. So I take the first LED, and there is kind of a right side and a wrong side to this LED. Ooh, I might use microscope view for this one. Let's see. So I'm going to go over here and look under the microscope. Yeah, okay. So this is the right side of the LED, which is more domed. You can kind of feel that. Wrong side of the LED, I'm kind of using knitter terms, is flatter. So it's hard to tell the difference in video, but you can definitely kind of see it more in person. And if I put it up on its edge like this, you can see that, there's clearly the flat side here, and which is like the wrong side. And then this one is the right side. The LED lights up from that side. So it's brighter when viewed, directly like this than it is like that. So we'll be, as we go along, we'll be twisting the LEDs so that this right side is out on all of them so that it's as bright as it can be. Okay, so now back to Workbench. So the first thing I do is I take the first LED on the strand here, and we might actually make that a little bit longer so that it's less in the way in a second. And I just take it and I make a loop with it like that, and I twist it 3 times. 1, and those are half twists. 2, 3.
And Carrie, you always start with the LED closest to the controller, not the. Yep. Okay.
LED closest to the controller. There's a little bit of a thicker thing here where it's spliced in. And you can see that like a little bit better with the microscope. So the strand here is sort of spliced into the wire of the controller here. And you want to make sure that you're not twisting this part because you don't want to stress that part. You just want to twist like just a little bit above it. So, and you'll see there's heat shrink tubing around it, which ends about here, and you want to twist about there.
Bob has a question.
Oh, yes. So right side means it will finally be outside. Good question, Bob. And wrong side means it'll be inside. Yep. All right. So I did that. Blobby here was made with a 200 light strand, and I used eight stitches, essentially made the circumference, made the tube that I ended up knitting. This I'm using is a 100 strand, and I want to kind of make a little baby blob because, you know, Debra's baby blob was so freaking adorable. So I'm just going to do a 6, a 6 stitch one today. But you can do however many stitches you want around. You could make like, you know, any shape blob you want. You can make a long skinny blob. So, you know, that would be fewer stitches around, or you could make like a short fat blob and that would be more stitches around. Whatever, blobs don't care. Do what you want. All right. So then I basically take the next LED and bend it in a loop like this and do the same thing. 3 half twists. 1, 2, 3. And like as we're going, we can make sure that the right side is out. I'm ending up with the wrong side out more often than not. So you just bend them around like this and make sure that that nice roundish, you know, roundish bulbous side is out. So I got 2 and I got 3, 1, 2, 3, and we got 4 going on here. Just giving myself a little bit of wire here. And like kind of like knitting, sometimes your wire is going to get like twisted up and it's going to want to tangle with things, and just like give yourself a little more space here. Just unwind just a little bit more. And you know, if it starts to like twist up on itself during this, just like you're, you know, knitting with like different colors with Fair Isle or stranded work, and they kind of tend to wrap up around themselves, just like let it unwrap or help it a little bit by twisting it in the other direction. So just think of it as yarn. It's just yarn of a different format. 1, 2, 3. So it's 4. Make sure I'm in the camera here. 1, 2, 3. It's 5. I'm only doing 6, and they kind of naturally will start to form this circle, which is good. 1, 2, 3. All right. So now I have like this sort of little flowery thing going on, and I'm gonna twist them all so that they're the right side out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself like a little more space here from the USB side of things. You might also hear me call that like the controller side because it has like a little microcontroller in it. And it's also where you control, this is the button that controls which pattern you display. So I am going to zip tie it back up though, so it doesn't, or not zip tie it, but twist tie it back up so that it doesn't come completely unraveled on me and create a mess. You know, yarn management and wire management are very similar. So there we go, twisting that back up. All right, but now I have like a little more length here, and it's not, this part is not in my way as much. Cool. All right, so back to my little flowery thing. What do we got going on here? So we got 4 things going on here. That's awesome. Oops, I'm upside down. Make sure you got your right side out. And let's see. So that's the beginning. That's the end. And I'm like a little bit crossed up here. So let me untwist myself. So yeah, you do want the wires exiting this, but I like to put the wires, the entry wires, kind of facing up like this right now for this step. And then I'm just going to take this wire that's coming from my active strand, and I'm just gonna like twist it around this this beginning wire a couple of times. And you know, you will have to kind of manipulate the USB side and your strand side around each other a little bit. So to prevent everything from twisting up. But I'm going to do like 3 twists there as well. And I'm going to try to do it kind of as close to my final twisted loop here as I can, because I kind of want, I want as much space between I want as much like wire as I can have between here and this LED. And I'll show you why in a moment. So, because the first LED is a little wonky. So I'm twisting it that way. And I'm finding it's going to be easier to take the USB through and twist it that way and leave this here so that I'm not untangling this. So like I'll twist that like once, maybe just through twice, just so it kind of like sticks there. And again, you don't want to twist it so much. You don't want that twist to be like going up into your splice here. You want it just shy of that. All right. So now I have sort of like this weird misshapen shape, and that's okay. Don't worry. Like don't worry about perfection. Blobs don't care. They're blobs. So, and you know, this is the butt, so it's the ugly end. Okay. And now
all blobs are beautiful, Carrie. All blobs are beautiful.
blob butts are cute. So now I'm going to do like the first bit of knitting, and I'm going to take my first LED that's coming from my my supply here, and it's going to be underneath this loop here. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to just pull it through this loop a bit. Now this first one is going to be off center. It's okay. But I'm going to pull it through till about half of the distance, half of the wire between these 2 LEDs is through. So like right about there. All right.
Liz called them happy little blobs. It is kind of a Bob Ross. It is as close to Bob Ross as electronics ever gets would be blob making, I think.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. All right. And then I find that it's easier to sort of pre-bend your loop rather than start to immediately pull it through the next one. So I take from the middle, again, between these 2 LEDs, from the middle, bend it here, and then take this one and from behind, because I'm creating knit stitches. You could do it from in front and create purl stitches. That's fine too. But just to be consistent about it and to like teach everybody who's not familiar with knitting like one way, I'm taking it from behind and putting it through. And then as I go, I'm just like twisting my LEDs so that they're the right side out. And same again, I find that it's nice to kind of pinch right here with my hands and like kind of, you know, maybe just shy of that halfway point, maybe just about at that halfway point, and then bend it again to the other point that's halfway between the LEDs, and then just put it right through. And that's basically it. Now repeat this 100 times. Almost 100 times. I'll show you. I'll have Debra show you like her zip tie method, which as you can see creates like a little bit of a denser LED structure. Like the knit ones are a little bit more spread out. And then we'll talk for a little bit, and then I'll show you on the one that I've already made on this guy how I bound off. But I mean, it's basically, I mean, if you're a knitter, you know how to bind this off, right? You just put the tail end through all of your active loops, and then you just twist it around itself, and that's it. So there, you already know how to bind off. Yeah, Liz, this is exactly knitting in the round. It's just doing it manually with your fingers. That's all it is. Yeah.
Right,
All
that's
right.
cool. You should continue. You should probably continue to do that on camera if you want while I start mine. You can...
Yeah, I'll just keep on doing this, and feel free to ask questions in the chat. We're like looking at the chat and answering questions. And please say hi if you're watching in the chat and you haven't said hi yet. Like,
Right,
it's always wonderful to know when people are watching and who's watching and stuff like that.
That's correct. Although we would make blobs even if no one were watching. I think
we would totally would. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm trying to get some light on my work, a little more light on my workspace. I think I should have probably arranged this beforehand, but let's see what we can do. All right. So while you continue to make it, anybody who knows me will be not surprised to know that my method is less organized and less structured than yours. But at the same time, it's kind of it is incredibly forgiving. Like there is really no way to do it wrong. As Carrie said, I've used what she called a swirl and tie technique, which I think is a really good description of it. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate it. And it does make like everything denser. And you can actually, if I turn one of these off, let me unplug this guy. By the way, I have named my blobs are named. This is Ernie. This is Bert. And Baby has yet to be named. I don't think we have a name. So any good ideas are welcome. So if I
and Bert and Ernie are both 200 LED strips, and Baby is 100 LEDs, right?
That's correct. And actually, what I was going to do, I think 100 LED strip. If I'm going to get started, this is a slower technique. Carrie, partially because the zip ties, partially because I'm slower with my hands. I'm not a knitter. I've never been able to knit. I have attempted it. So this method takes longer. I will certainly not finish, but my attempt today is going to be start with 100 LED string, and you can make a fun little sphere. You can make a blob of any shape you want. But also what I found that's kind of fun is if you do a half a sphere with 100 LEDs, it makes a nice hat. So that's actually what I'm going to go for today. And you can see here, I turn the LEDs off on this. If I pull this closer, so you can see that you see all the little zip ties interspersed. Let me see if I get focus with the LEDs, but they're the same color. It doesn't look bad. If you use white 4-inch, like teeny tiny zip ties, I think as I did say, zip ties, they don't really show, and they kind of blend their way into the blob. So let me get started. Some of the things, a lot of the things Carrie said are really, really applicable to what I'm gonna talk about. Let me unplug. Let's see which guys are. Let's see. Yeah, unplug you. Oh, no, not the light, not the overhead light though. Okay, I've got different things plugged in different places in just a sec. Okay, so I'm going to start with my spool of 100 LEDs. Now, a couple of things. I like to, Carrie makes hers with the LEDs off. I have a harder time. I frequently get the LEDs backwards. So I find it really useful, and I'm not as adept with my hands. It's another reason I don't solder on live streams like Carrie does. It's not a pretty process. It's like making sausage. You just don't want to see. You want to see the end result. So here, so I like to turn it on. Also, just if you just haven't had a chance to play with these LED strings, I'm going to quickly point out they come with this little really super cheap controller built in, and you can take it off and do fun things. But it has a lot of pretty neat effects. If you just go ahead and, I don't know if you can see, tilt the camera and just plugged it in to power, to 5-volt power. There's a push button on the front of that controller, and you can change. I'll create kind of a lot of patterns. Just by pushing the button, and they actually work really, really well in a blob form. It's kind of fun. So there's no need to add anything, do any coding to have a pretty cool effect. Another thing I want to point out is, let me see if I can get a solid color going, is what Carrie said, but I don't know if it'll show. I don't know if the difference in here, actually intensity will show, but you can kind of see, it's getting a little hard to see here, but I'm trying to show an LED right side up next to an LED upside down. And of course the pattern, there we go. It's not going to, the intensity doesn't, it kind of saturates on the camera, but if you actually look at, you can tell visually what the front and the back is actually much more, I can much more easily visually than by feel.
Yeah, you can definitely tell once they're on for sure, which is the back and front.
So even if I don't leave it on, I definitely turn it on frequently when I'm making it, just to make sure everything's right side up. So let me explain my technique, which again is much less structured than Carrie's. So like her, I start, usually, it doesn't actually matter, but I usually start with the end closest to the wires. I'm going to turn this off for a second. And I keep turning it. All right, I put my blob on the same power source as my overhead light. That's not good. So yeah, so I have a bunch of these 4-inch super tiny zip ties. There's a link to the ones I use in my blog. I think if you probably in the notes for this YouTube video, there'll be a link to the blog post.
Yes, I will. We will add some links and stuff tomorrow too.
Okay, excellent.
Ooh. Can I interrupt for a couple
Yeah.
to answer a couple questions? Okay.
Oh yes.
So blah, 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 let's see. Dropping stitches, any hints? Yes. So it is kind of funny that you can drop stitches kind of just as easily with wire as you can with yarn. And maybe even easier because you don't have any needles through these stitches, like keeping them, right? So I think actually now that I'm doing it, that it was a little easier to do the 8 around because you just have like a little more circumference to work with. So I would recommend that as your first blob to make it 8 stitches around because I feel like it will help a little bit. So once after I got past like the first row, I started to bend it upwards into a tube shape because it naturally wanted to be that way, right? If we kept it flat, it would sort of keep increasing, right? And we don't want that to happen. We want the same circumference, right? Same diameter. And so folding it up into that pattern will help. Also, pre-bending is helpful, like doing this pre-bend in the loop first and then putting the loop through, I found helped me not drop stitches. The other thing that you can do is you can kind of bend your stitches inward a little bit like this so that they kind of like make a 90-degree almost to the stitch below them. And then you can like unbend it the next round as you're knitting it. But that also helps keep your stitches in place a little bit better. So yes, I hope that was helpful. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No,
go ahead,
that's fine. Again, like your method is more structured, and that's good. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. I think
no, there is no right or wrong way to do blobs.
This is the chaos. I should name mine the chaotic blob method. I think. This feels like a little bit like one of those NPR like cooking shows or something they do on the radio somehow. I don't know. Commentary.
I have like an extra little solder blob or something near this LED, or I don't know. Maybe it's an epoxy blob. I'm just gonna like nip it off with some nippers real quick, very carefully so that I don't break the wire, right? Okay. But it's just like a little bit that's sticking up that's kind of sharp and bumming me out. So
all right, all right.
I
think sometimes, yeah, I mean, sometimes you find solder splices. It's clear one of the wires broke and they just soldered it and shipped it. So maybe I don't know if it's related.
Yep.
All right. So let me get started on my technique here. I guess I'm a little further away from the camera, but I'll try to hold it up. So the way these blobs are formed is that, and the reason it's smaller is instead of actually knitting with the string as it is, I curl the string, and let me get this close to the camera, into little swirly S shapes. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to curl about 10 LEDs at a time and then start to wind them in a circle. You don't, one warning, based on my experience, is leave some, you may have the string, this LED string on a spool, or sometimes it comes without a spool, but with a zip tie to hold it together. Only unwind about 10 LEDs at a time and work with those. More than that, and it becomes a really, really big untangling problem. And even though their wires and kind of stiff, you'd be amazed at how well tangled these things can get. So it's a little bit like a slinky. Honestly, it's like a slinky. If you've ever tried to untangle a slinky, it's pretty horrible. So you want to kind of, you'll end up doing about, say, 10. I usually do about 10 at a time. When it doesn't need to be exact. And take them, and the pattern you make is you kind of hold your fingers at either end of the LED. I don't know if I've got focus here. I'm going to maybe move baby blob out of the way because it might be catching the focus. And you basically hold your fingers at either end of the LED and twist until you've got kind of a, I don't know what the shape is, but you've
kind of an S spot.
Kind of an S shape.
Yeah,
and
galaxy.
Yeah, and again, so the wire goes, the trick is to go down swirling each blob into its own S shape. And the part I always mess up is for it to look really good, you want to keep swirling it, all the swirls to be oriented in the same direction. So let me, and by the way, but if you mess it up, you just unwind it and do it again. So it's kind of easiest to kind of think of it as kind of twisting right or twisting left. So I've done 2 already. So I go to the 3rd LED in the string, I grab it on either sides, and I'm twisting it clockwise. That's the best way to think about it, is you grab it, you twist the 2 ends of your LED clockwise, and just keep kind of wrapping the string around the outside into that S shape until it sits kind of nicely near its neighbors. And what you get is kind of a denser group of LEDs in this little swirly shape. Hopefully that people can see that. Let me know if in the chat if that's hard to see. I can try to put it against a darker background.
I can see it.
You can make it out. Okay. So, and then you just keep going. So like take about 10 LEDs, grab each one, try to make sure it's oriented upward. And if again, like me, you'll forget, you plug it in and look at it, and yeah, the right side's all up, and okay, we're good. But also a little pro tip I'll tell you about. So I'm going to swirl a couple more. So again, swirl it clockwise. And these are going to be bending all over. So don't worry about it looking perfect or all that. We're going to manipulate the heck out of these, and it won't matter in the end. That's the beauty. That's maybe one of the reasons I gravitated towards LED projects, is once they're lit up and illuminated, nobody's looking at the quality of your stitches, or even if you dropped a stitch, or if like me, some of them are upside down, it just looks cool. Okay, so you keep moving down the chain. Make sure your LED is pointed upwards, and I'm going clockwise. So twirl the LED clockwise, wrap about 1 turn, wrap the wire around it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll do 4 more and get a chain of about 10 LEDs. And by the way, the reason I actually even came up with this project in the first place is because it's through my idea of wearables, because I love these LED strings. They're super flexible and easy to use. And I wanted to use one. I thought it'd be fun. The LEDs are spaced so far apart. I was trying to find a way to make them look closer together. Again, grab, twist clockwise, and turn. Look closer together so I could sew it on as a decorative trim on an outfit. And then once I started down that path, by the way, I never did complete that idea, though. That may still happen at some point. Once I started down that path, the wire holds its shape so nicely. I started to wonder if it could actually hold a 3D structure once I'd already bent it.
Yeah.
And that's where the zip ties come in. All right. So I've taken about 10 LEDs or so. Don't tell me if I've done more or less. It's okay. All right, into a chain. So here they are. And so we're going to this. Carrie has the nice thing about Carrie's method is you can count. You're doing 8 in a round. This is a bit more touch and go. You kind of have to estimate how many come in each level, because what we're basically doing is we're going to form these. We're going to start bending these around. You can start with a loose end into here. I'll just try to keep it out of the. I'm starting with the LED closest to the controller. That's going to be the center LED in what basically becomes a spiral pattern. You're basically spiraling all the LEDs around, and then you're just going to zip tie them together. So kind of you start with the first 4, and this is where it becomes a kind of, there's no right way to do it. You really just want to add enough zip ties to hold it into kind of a structure, into kind of a mesh structure. And what I usually do with the first few, it's actually less critical, is you kind of zip tie each one to its kind of 3 or 4 nearest neighbors. So just to hold the shape. And what ends up happening, but unlike a knitting pattern, is if you find that it's not holding a structure well, you can actually go back and reinforce it with zip ties later. So here's what I've done. The parts where the wires of one swirl are near the wires of the other, I put a little zip tie through and just pull it tight, and do it for the next one in the chain. Again, you kind of, anywhere where you think if you wanted to hold it together, the 2 wires should stay close together. You put the zip tie through and pull it tight, and keep going until you've started kind of a circular shape. And again, if it doesn't look right, you can bend, like if you don't like this piece out, don't worry about the nice thing is you can actually kind of bend it even once it's formed. You can say like, oh, there's a big gap there, and just twist it around. So, and you just literally keep going. And again, the mistake I've made is each LED is in a clockwise twirl, and I'm winding the LEDs clockwise. Sometimes I lose track, And then I've started, while I'm winding the LEDs around the circle in a clockwise direction of going this way. Sometimes I lose track and then I start going the other way. And it all looks fine in the end, but if you have a pattern, an LED pattern that depends on lights lighting up in sequence, you can see the LEDs zipping around like clockwise and then counterclockwise when you hit that thing. And again, it's not really a big deal because you've got a light up blob, but
Right.
At the end of the day, and that's what matters. But
Yes.
you know, if you like to, if you feel the need to make it like consistent all the way around, then that's you know, something you want to take care of. Oh, okay. So just get this, you know, the controller out of the way. And the one thing you do want to do is obviously the bright side of the LED should be on the outside. And right now, the bright side of my LEDs are facing up, and it's going to curve downwards away from the camera. And I want to get my controller and the wire on the outside of my blob. I don't want to knit the blob around it because it'll be harder to feed that through.
Yeah, that's something I probably should have noted too. Is to keep the controller and the wires, on the outside instead of the inside. I mean, you can fish it through. Probably, well, on this one you can fish it through probably, but on yours you're a little bit tighter.
On mine I couldn't. So yeah, I should have done. You know, by the way, also with this one, you can also start with the far end. It doesn't really matter. But since this came on a spool, I didn't want to unwind the whole thing to get to the far end. So this will work just fine. And so right now what I'm doing is I'm zip tying I'm zip tying it so that the controller wire is zip tied tightly to like the center swirl. And I'm just still going around. And this is just a slow kind of messy looking process. So what I do is I zip tie a bunch of things together. That's the wrong size zip tie. And then I stop and I reassess. In the beginning, it's not going to look like much, but after you get to a point, you stop and you reassess and say, okay, where are there gaps? What's not holding it together as well as it should? Or you'll just add more zip ties. The solution to everything is more zip ties. That's the nice thing. If only.
Right, I love it.
So something not look right, something in the wrong place, more zip ties. So, and really that's it. You just keep going. And again, the other trick is, a couple tricks, is at some point, when you reach, when you have about all 10 in a circle, you're going to have to start curving it. So if you want to give it a specific curvature, I should have brought a bowl in here. You could take like a cereal bowl and something and start to, if you think you kind of know the curvature you want it to have at the end, you can kind of place it over that and use that as a guide for how much curvature to give it when you pull it down. It also matters, how much curvature your end blob has. Again, I hope that you guys can kind of see this as we go. Yes, thank you. Bob has a question about have I considered different colored zip ties? And the answer is yes. I think I tried it with black, but they just the white ones disappear when they're lit up, when they're illuminated. And I just like that appearance better. I didn't like, but you certainly can. Okay, so one more thing I want to show about this technique, and then it's really just a lot of zip tying and going, after a while, you're going to just have to start imposing the curvature on it. And if you want to do a sphere or spheroid, you need to keep track of about when you're halfway through, because it's going to kind of naturally tend to get wider and wider and wider, as you go down.
Right.
But you're going to need to give yourself time to work your way back to the center. So again, if you kind of keep track of when you're at about 50, you'll start to automatically kind of, each one of these, each circle is going to have more and more swirls. Each kind of layer in the spiral will have an increasing number of swirls until you want to start bringing it in, and then you'll very consciously have to kind of use fewer and fewer and pull it tighter and tighter. I'm not at the point where it's going to start to do that yet, and I'm not even really at the point where you see a lot of curvature. I'm still going around my spiral clockwise. And I think right now, while I was talking, I just created one more swirl and just added it, which you can do, but I like to create a bunch and then add them. Like I like to swirl like 10 of them and then put them on. Now the zip ties will start to get in your way. So the other thing, the last, actually I guess significant pointer as you go, is I usually do a circle and then start to clip them. You have to be really careful because if you snip the wires, you're going to be unhappy because then it won't work. So, scissors work, but it's an easy way to, they're an easy way to accidentally clip the wires. I like to use flush cutters because I'll I'll hold the end of the zip tie and just, kind of run the flush cutters down the end till it hits the I don't know what you call that, the clasp or whatever, and then just snip, and I'll visually make sure I'm not going to cut any wires. What works even better if you're in terms of absolutely eliminating the possibility of snipping any wires are nail scissors. Those clip zip ties really well, and it's actually even harder to clip the wires with it. But I kind of like my flush cutters. I'm pretty facile with them, so I have had to resolder a wire or two. One thing about these wires is if you do have to solder them, they're coated in kind of an enamel. Yeah. So you have to like melt the enamel off the ends before you can solder them. Anyway, so yeah, so this gets messy too. Like Carrie's is nice and neat. I'm gonna have cut zip ties basically.
I don't know if mine's like.
But the thing about mine again is I rely on the fact that at the end of the day, it's gonna look cool because it's a blob that lights up. So yeah, it's
totally.
So I think I've covered the basic technique. I'll keep going. I'll try to show you when I get to some curvature, but and show you how again, it's more of a kind of a gut feeling as to how much curvature you're going to need. And if, by the way, but the nice thing about this kind of mesh you end up with, again, is that it's stretchy. So if you need more space in some place, you can just kind of pull it apart a little more, push it together, a little bit like almost like chainmail out of LED string. Okay, so anyway, so now, so you can see, so I've done the first 10 and I missed 2 zip ties. Let's clip those. But then I'm just going to repeat the process of swirling another 10 LEDs and, fastening them to the exterior of the blob. And that's really it. So, and again, sometimes it's fun to plug it in and see what it looks like halfway through. But I will make a little more progress before I do that again. So yeah, so Carrie, that please ask any questions you have in the chat if something I've said isn't clear. But again, this technique allows for a lot of improvisation. I'm sure there's a million variations on it that you could come up with.
Totally. Yep, I'm dropping stitches now.
Are you?
Yeah, sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you just like get in a mode where your wire likes to spring out. Like, I don't know, it might be a little hard to see, but like this has sprung out from the previous row. And like, that's okay. Like the cool thing about it is that it doesn't tend to zip down like knit stitches do. So I just kind of fish them back through. And like, I just kind of try to bend the wire a little bit more to kind of capture them in place, And yeah, I mean, definitely if you're already familiar with knitting, you'll be able to like see the stitches anymore. But like, I feel like as we're going, we can start to see all of the individual stitches there. And so, yeah, the idea is to just have the one LED at the top center of all of your stitches.
That's, yeah. Yeah, and yours looks really nice. Yours has a nice, obvious structure. This, again, does not so much. But actually, the nice thing about yours being structured as it is, so that you have each ring around the blob has the same number of LEDs, is that if you wanted to code it with some patterns, if you wanted to pixel map it in 3D space, you could much more easily, and that would be nice. I know, like, I made a decoration. I could pull up a Twitter picture, but I took Ernie and turned I probably can't show that very easily, and lit up the LEDs like orange with a little green knob on top, so Ernie looked like a pumpkin and made a mouth move. Here, I can pull that up. Let me see if I can pull it up and share that and share the window. Hold on.
Yeah, so the cool thing about how these LEDs work for people who don't know is that they these particular ones are fixed address, so they're a little bit different from normal addressable LEDs, which don't really have an idea of what number they are in the strand. They just are like getting a message, chopping their part out of it, and like sending the rest of the message on. These are actually fixed address, so that they're made in this strand. There's some kind of like programming process at the factory where each one gets their number that they are in the strand. And so you can actually, I think, send commands to like each particular number of LED in the strand. And if you cut the strand, that like it retains that memory.
Exactly.
So then you have like 2 strands, you'd have like 1 through you know, 49 and like 50 through, you know, through 100 or whatever.
All right. Oh, there we go. Hold on. I'm just, can we, is there a way to share that window so I can show what the pumpkin looks like?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the fixed address thing is it has a lot of interesting things. So there we go. That's, let me see, is it playing? Let's see, play. Let's see. So that's the pumpkin. And if you can see, I made it, whatever. I wonder if I'm just.
Oh, it has a mouth.
Yeah, it has a mouth that opens and closes. I'd love to make it sound reactive.
Oh my God.
I wonder if the StreamYard, why is it? It has a mouth, and I don't know why my video is not playing. It's you can see it's
thinking.
Buffering.
It's thinking about playing eventually, maybe.
I wonder if I could pull it. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, just to spoil the yes, Liz, I totally agree. The fixed address LEDs are a little weird because you're used to being able to address. How do they know? How do they know where they're supposed to be? What's their secret? But
yeah. Liz says she thinks of the fixed address ones as a type of strange zombie electronics creature. Very, very true. Like, really I am number 225 or whatever.
All right. Well, I don't know why the buffering's not happening, but you can imagine the mouth opens and closes. But the point I was going to make is that because there's not an incredibly well-defined structure from which to guess the positions of each of the LEDs, you know, you have to, as Liz said, if you want to turn the LED a certain color, you have to say, okay, LED number 150 in the string, you're going to be the black, you know, or I think it was, I'm not sure what color the mouth was, maybe blue. You're going to be the blue part of the mouth, and LED 151. LED is 150 through 160, but I had to keep guessing because I didn't know like which ones are in the front, which ones are in the back. So like for a while, you know, the first iterations, that blob had his mouth in the back of its head, and like,
real zombie blob.
Exactly right. So anyway, but so yours, you could actually pretty much calculate that, and that's really fun because you can do with pixel mapping, you can do some really fun effects. Oh, and one other thing, like because we're on to fiber arts, I wanted to say, like this really is, I'm sure some people who are better at sewing, knitting, and other like fabric and fiber arts than I am will have some cool ideas, but you can really use these in the way you use strings for other things. So behind me, that big, actually both of those, you know, circles of LEDs are made from these string lights. Instead of doing so it's string art using string lights, and that's, you know, so that's one possibility. It was a little bit harder if you've ever done string art where you put pegs in a circle or even another shape, and you know, string the wires between them. It you know, it makes a beautiful pattern, but it's even better when you have LEDs. It was a little harder because you have to take into account the spacing of the LEDs, but it makes for a really nice effect. And it's, again, a surprising, there's no, you know, those are coded to take advantage of this. Actually, the bottom one is coded to take advantage of the shape, and the top one is actually running off of a regular controller, and like that has no idea what shape those LEDs have been bent into, and still looks really, really pretty. So
nice. Wait, that was the top or the bottom one?
The top one is running off of a standard controller. The bottom one I coded to actually take it. Oh, I'm in the way. I coded to take advantage of the shape and the distribution of the pixels. In fact, So you know, if you do that, again, you can, pixel mapping lets those circles kind of run around each other and lets that arc kind of spiral around like in the way it's doing right now, or lets the mouth of the pumpkin, you know, appear in the right place on the face of the pumpkin. So, but even without that, patterns look really pretty. So it's just a fun feature of these LEDs. But yeah, the fixed address part is really, like, I did try. The nice thing about the fixed address pixels, though, is I couldn't understand why anybody would want them either. But if you hang out with people who like to make things with LEDs, a lot of times, actually, you're putting them in like different places. You're running them through sculptures. For me, it's through garments. I made an LED dress where I had LEDs branching out from a central point. Now with addressable LEDs, if you want the signal to transfer, if you want to use just one input signal and you want the signal to travel across all the LEDs, you have to have the output of one string connected to the input of the next. Yeah. With fixed address LEDs, you don't. So you can make an LED. You can cut it. You can have basically a signal bus. Which is actually, if you wanted, for things like an LED cube, I haven't taken as much advantage of that as I'd like to, but I have tried it. So for me, for that dress I made where they all branch out from a central point, it would have saved me a lot of wiring because I could have had one. It would have been actually really nice because running wires through clothing, yeah, it makes it, it's just harder. That's all. Oh, by the way, yeah, if you're doing this, one thing that I always find happens, if you can see mine again, is these little S shapes tend to hook on each other really. So just watch out for that. It just, and then we'll do that and you'll unhook them. It's still okay if you do only about 10 at a time. You're not going to get any really big messes you can't untangle, hopefully. You know, like in the worst case scenario, by the way, these wires are pretty remarkably sturdy for given how thin the insulation appears. In the absolute worst case scenario, you just take everything apart and and unbend it and bend it back again. I have done that.
Yeah, it's actually enamel, I believe, or at least that was the way they started. They're like in electronics terms, it's called enameled wire, or it's sometimes called motor wire, because this style of wire is used to wind the windings in motors. And to wind windings in motors, you're making your own inductor. So you're wrapping this wire tons and tons of times, around two things to make this big coil. And if it was uninsulated wire, your coil would just be shorting out on your loops would be shorting out on each other. They wouldn't actually be generating a magnetic field. But when it's insulated like that, then you get this continuous current and magnetic field being generated, and that's what makes a motor spin.
So geeky question here. What do you think the inductance of a blob actually is?
Well, I don't know. We're not coiling it, so
yeah,
probably. Well, you're sort of coiling it a little bit more than I am, but
there's still a structure. It should have some very small, right? I mean, because you are creating.
Yeah. I mean, I am actually sort of creating these loops and stuff, and you're creating these loops, so it probably has some inductance. I just, I wouldn't even know what to guess it would be, though.
There's a net curvature somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm actually. I mean, if you curled it one way and then curled it back on itself, it would cancel. Anyway, sorry. That was just a random shower thought, blob thought.
Pat says there's a solvent you can get to strip a bit of enamel. I think acetone might work well for that. So you might want to keep this away from nail polish remover. But
definitely.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I don't know if there's, some of the, I think it still is an enamel coating, but it's funny because obviously a very flexible one, right? So I feel like there might be something a little bit more going on than normal enamel, and maybe there's a little bit of plasticity in there or something like that. I don't really know.
I got to say that because the enamel on this wire. Oh, by the way, just I'll come back to this, but the enamel on this wire comes off very easily with a hot soldering iron, which if you buy enameled wire just to have enameled wire, it doesn't come off nearly as easily with a hot soldering iron. So you're right. This is clearly something.
Some do, some don't.
Oh, okay.
It depends. There are different types. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to show one thing about the structure of my blob here. Since as I go around the loop, I'm kind of zip tying each one. I'm creating a bigger and bigger circle. Each swirl gets zip tied to the kind of circle just below it. But I also reinforce. So you can kind of see concentric circles. So this outer one gets zip tied to the swirl right beneath it, and then I also zip tie it kind of almost cross bracing to the one diagonally from it in the previous circle as well. That kind of helps it keep its shape. So never too many zip ties is really basically my motto. And then if you do what I did and put it in the wrong place, you end up, it did zip ties. So
okay, well, I think this is a good learning opportunity. So Robin broke her wire.
Oh no.
And I will say right now that Robin was working with a handicap because she was working with pre-bent and twisted wires that I had used and then undone, but I had used them to do the pictures that are in the blob blog post. So they were already kind of tightly twisted and maybe a little bit more brittle. So, I mean, I think here we could fix that. We could add another wire and solder it across to bridge these two, and add some heat shrink over it and stuff like that. So if you wanted to continue, you could certainly do that. Let's see. I'm just trying to see which wire. Oh, you cut it? The good old cut zip ties. Oh, I was trying to give you a way out. I was trying to blame it on me.
I've done that a number of times. I think a little bit of, again, because these are so bent up, you don't have to worry about like the shaping a little different. And if you have clear shrink tubing, it honestly doesn't show at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So definitely a very salvageable. This is the most forgiving project, because at the end of the day, you have something that's kind of a fun shape that lights up. So again, I'm going to go through and I've learned to kind of feel my way down, and kind of block when I cut my zip ties, and kind of block the, I cut from the bottom and try to be absolutely
kind of put your fingers in between so that you can feel.
Yeah, exactly. Feel where I'm cutting. So the trick is, again, not to cut your fingers when you're doing that, but again, I've done this enough, and I have, yes, it's easy to do. It's just this feels like a weird thing to be becoming proficient at, because I can't honestly.
What? It's not a marketable skill? What?
I can't quite see how the skill transfers, but I feel like, just practice is making this easier. Also, I'm just relaxed now that I know, in the end, I'm very relaxed, because in the end, it all looks just fine. But yeah, I'm definitely, again, easy to do and fairly easy to fix as long as you're okay with soldering. But yeah, it's true. The one thing about it is, if you cut these into smaller pieces, out a little story, because, I started off with the 200 LED lengths, and the 100 LED lengths make smaller ones, but I wanted to try to make a bracelet out of it. And really, you only want about 20 LEDs for that.
Oh.
And knowing their fixed address, you can't really take a strand and cut it up, because then if you were going to code it yourself, the last 20 LEDs get to be,
Yeah, you'd have to keep track of what strand had what addresses.
Exactly. And it's doable, but it's a pain. So I went through, as I want to do when I'm bored, AliExpress, I wonder if anybody makes, and I actually found somebody who was selling them in 20 LED lengths. I'm like, this is amazing. That's so great. Cause you can find anything on the internet. So I ordered them, and I got them, and I plugged them in, and they weren't working, and they weren't working, and they weren't working. I'm like, damn it. I got ripped off. And then suddenly I had a bing, and I changed my code. I took my 20 LED strand, and instead of programming LEDs 1 through 20 or 0 through 19, I'm like, okay, let's program LEDs 80 through 99, and they lit up. So
they cut it themselves.
Not understanding. I just sent it to me. So yeah,
that's hilarious.
I played myself, I guess, is kind of how I look at it. So yeah, it was a learning experience. So if it's too good to be true, it probably is. All right, so now I'm at the point in the project where I have a gazillion cut zip ties on my desk mixed in with the intact zip ties, and it becomes a good time to kind of brush all the cut ones aside so I can find the intact zip ties on my desk. So mine's not gonna start to look like anything for a long time, I'm afraid. But I'm happy to I don't know if you want to, I'm happy to talk about the coding, or pull up some of the the programming interfaces that you can use for these too, because they're kind of fun things you can do. There's such great LED, even if you're not into coding, there's such great LED LED controllers out there that you can actually customize with, even with minimal or no coding. If you think there's a good time to do that, I will. But otherwise, I'm very happy to keep. This is very kind of relaxing just to keep.
It is very repetitive and zen. It's like a good TV project, or talking on the phone project, or
boring Zoom
meeting project.
Yeah. Nobody has boring Zoom meetings. What are you talking about? They're all fascinating.
I'm lucky. I don't have any boring Zoom meetings.
Well, you're the boss. Nobody's going to tell you if they are. but no. Did I mute?
Let's see. What?
Was I muted? Oh, no, I'm not. Okay. Right. So yeah, nobody's you're being the boss. Nobody's going to tell you if the meetings are boring. But
right. Oh my God, maybe they are boring. Nobody's telling me.
But the thing is, too, these lights are so cheap. I mean, honestly, they're like a construction material. These 100 LED blob, you have to look around. Oh yeah, if you start to like get like me and start to like kind of acquire them in like hoarding level quantities.
You don't know what you're talking about.
It's a slippery slope, Carrie. I'm just saying.
It is. It is. And so for anybody who's unfamiliar, AliExpress is basically sort of a Chinese Amazon. And they have everything on there. I mean, they have like clothing on there and electronics and like whatever. But you can get electronics there from like electronics distributors that either aren't available in the US or are kind of closer to the source and don't have the markups that they do when you buy them through here. So it's a favorite place. And, you know, they also just have wacky stuff that we don't have here.
It is actually truly amazing. It's really fun to see it. Well, a lot of the wacky stuff you find there will be here in about a year, for example, is what you tend to find. So
totally.
I've ordered like my LED Halloween mask from AliExpress. So
yeah. What? Oh my God. I can't wait to see that.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, it's, okay. We will. Actually, what I'd really like to do is to figure out that one. Nobody I know has figured out how to code. It would be really fun if you could. Like you can upload stuff, but it would be still really fun if you could really hack that. But the thing, but actually, I will say the one thing about these LED string lights is a lot of the time they're actually exactly as cheap as on Amazon as they are AliExpress. I've got to say, the link on my blog to the 100 LED strands, I got these, I think, free shipping Amazon, $7 a strand, which is honestly, you're not going to find them any cheaper on AliExpress, and they come in 2 days from Amazon versus a month from AliExpress. So now,
it definitely seems like sellers are maybe now doing, like some Chinese sellers are doing both places and are partaking in Prime shipping, where that was not true, a couple of years ago.
I do think you're right about that. Yeah, there are definitely some AliExpress sellers which have a more limited supply of goods on Amazon, but they're kind of, it's nice to have. So yeah, I just like, all right. So I fortunately caught this. The next one was twisted the wrong way. By the way, if like me, you find out you've made your pattern and one of your LEDs is backwards, so it looks a little dimmer than the others. This wire, if you're not repeatedly twisting it, it'll take a lot of stress. You can actually kind of just take it and twist it within you can rotate it within the final shape too. This is an incredibly forgiving project. All right, so I'm still twisting away. More zip ties.
More zip ties.
Never too many zip ties. It's honestly like, I bought 1,000 pack of them, and because there's 100 LEDs in the strand, and each LED, it probably gets zip tied to its 3 nearest neighbors. I mean, you're using 300 or 400 LEDs, probably 4 nearest neighbors. Each blob, does use about 300 or 400 LEDs. So fortunately, they're cheap. I bought 1,000 pack, and I'm probably going to need to buy another one soon. So,
so many blobs.
Yeah. All right. So I think this one is going to be a hat. The nice thing about making a hat, by the way, that's easier than a blob, is that you don't have to worry about when to start curving back inwards. It's because you just keep going outwards until you run out of LEDs, and then you can again smush it into shape really till it fits your head. So as you can see, there's a reason I never became an incredibly proficient knitter and sewer. By the way, I think that may be obvious from some of my explanations.
Oh, we could get you knitting. There are enough people on this stream for sure that have like taught knitting, taught a lot of knitting to people.
Yeah. Well,
everyone kind of learns differently, and there are a lot of different ways to learn too. So it's definitely one of those things where like finding the way that resonates with you is like probably the most important thing.
Yeah, actually, no, I think you're right. And we have some zip tie commentary. I see. Yes, Jason is already. Jason, are you making a blob? And that's awesome. Yes, you do run out much faster than you think you're going to. This is not my first blob, but yeah, this is my zip tie supply, and I'm hoping it's enough. But
man, and Liz says she made a zip tie curtain for a closet door in college. That is kind of amazing.
That is. Oh, somebody showed me an amazing zip tie structure at Burning Man, which must have used, I don't even know. It felt like it's like a little bit like going to Legoland. It's like somebody needs to invent a zip tie land. where all
Zip
the
tie
art projects, are zip ties instead of Lego based. But
right.
people do some incredible things. I know it's really, I mean, people will make art out of anything, and it's amazing. People are so creative.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and especially people who like really delve into one medium, right? And just keep building and building upon that medium, and like they kind of become experts on it. It's really interesting to see, what people do.
Yeah, I love this. It's a little scary to see what my skill set's going to end up evolving into. Liz, how long did it take you to make zip tie curtains though? I'm really, that idea is fascinating. That's got to be a long-term project.
More zip tie structures. More zip tie structures.
So yes, more zip ties. So yeah, you just keep adding, and I think I help it keep its shape. And all right, around and around and around we go. Where the zip ties end up, nobody knows.
So yeah, Deborah, if you wanted to talk about programming them and what you've learned with different microcontrollers and different methods, I think that's a good thing to chat about right now.
I would love to.
We can try to keep it like as beginner friendly as we can. There are a bunch, like people have basically come up with a lot of different ways of programming LEDs. Some are specifically like made for like arrays of LEDs similar to this. And so they have been specifically made to make that kind of programming easy so that you can just kind of like map, like the map already exists and you can just sort of like, be like, oh, these ones over here, I want to be this color and that color and I want to fade it and do this and that. And you don't really have to know much programming. You just have to know what kind of patterns you want to create. And then there are other platforms that are more like general purpose, making hardware go and making things light up and blink and move and stuff like that. And then you have to be like a little bit more codey about it and be like, okay, well, we're going to, cycle through this loop here and that loop there and, put them all in the right order. So, yeah.
Well, that's, what I like about actually, there are two platforms I want to show you that the nice thing about them is that you can kind of do both. Like they come with enough preset patterns that you could just plug it in and go, and then allow yourself to explore. So let me, and I'm going to put, so you can see already though, I'm getting some curvature, by the way. So those of you of the Jewish persuasion will recognize that I now have an LED kippah.
Wait, an LED what is that?
Yarmulke head covering. It's
a yarmulke. Yeah. Okay.
So basically, at this point, we're up to LED yarmulke.
Yarmulke level.
It's from like from the Adam Sandler song. This is be like the Hanukkah yarmulke. All right, enough. So I'm going to put this down for a second, and I wanted, I actually do. I'm going to pull up a window. So I'm going to show
is
some
your yarmulke electronica? I feel like we need to add another verse to the Hanukkah Hanukkah song now.
Put on your yarmulke. It's electronica. I apologize to everybody for having sung. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's actually all right. Maybe we can copyright that and get a contract. Okay, so let me show a couple of things. So first of all, let me figure out where my controllers are. So the first one I show is there's this really neat controller out there that I just love called Pixelblaze. And Pixelblaze, Ernie, say hi. Oh, we haven't even gotten to the googly eyes yet, or you mentioned them, I guess.
A little bit.
They're pretty straightforward, but they really, really honestly are kind of essential, I think.
They are essential to any blob. Blobs need googly eyes. That's the one thing that there is a definite right way and wrong way to do blobs. The wrong way is to not put googly eyes on your blob, or to put googly eyes on your blob that are too small.
Yes, that's right. Yes, too small googly eyes. Googly eyes.
You need at least 2-inch diameter googly eyes for your blob, because it will be cuter with bigger eyes. I tried to put smaller googly eyes on it, and it was just weird. It was like it was really weird. It just looked like I don't know.
I have a googly eye
or something.
I have the whole googly eye assortment. You can buy googly eye multi-packs that come in different sizes. I actually do highly recommend.
We might have gone on a googly eye buying spree, and now they're like giant 6-inch ones on the refrigerator.
That's always good. Again, like I think they're a little bit like zip ties in that it's okay. More is more. And Eileen has a question. So she's got 100 light orange LEDs. So you could have Halloween blobs. And how do you make? There are only two. Oh, yeah, that's actually a good question. Here, let me. There's 4 strands and 2 remotes. Yeah, here's
2 remotes. Oh.
You may find all. You should. All of these remotes, if you have identical strands, they should work off the same remote. You should be able to, like, I mean, we can do the example. So yeah, I didn't even talk about the remotes because I don't ever use it. I usually cut off the controller. These each, if you buy the same ones, the LEDs actually, like the remote works with a controller, but they're all, you know, they're cheap. They're all, I guess they're infrared.
Are they?
Are they?
No, I think they're Wi-Fi because I don't. There's no
radio frequency. Or they're
okay. Or sorry, not Wi-Fi, but like RF. Yeah, RF. I think so.
Okay. Oh yeah, no, they must be. There's no. Actually, I think there are. Look, there's little LED, right at the top. No, isn't that infrared?
Oh, yeah, it might be. But where's the receiver?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Right?
Well, the case is clear. Wouldn't that be a reason?
Oh, yeah. I'm used to like looking for the little black mark, right? And yeah, no, you're right. That might it might just be in there. Actually, I think it's that TO 220 thing. I think it's the obvious black chip looking thing that you can transistor looking thing that you can see through the case.
We can do some experiments. I'm going to open up this remote and then let's see. Mine came with a coin cell. Sometimes, depending on who your vendor is, sometimes they come with a coin cell battery, sometimes they don't. So I'm just going to, or we'll do some just quick experiment with this. So here, so let me see if I'm going to point the remote here. You got this. It's a little hard for you to see my. It's just off screen. I can plug it in over here on screen, maybe. Yeah, I've got this power supply over here. Let me plug this in over here so you can see the remote. Plug in the Keepa. Let's do a little experiment to see how that remote works. Actually, I'm kind of curious now. All right, let's see. Yeah, there we go. We lit up. We've got the remote. So let's see if we can. There we go. Okay, so the remote works. So it's green, yellow. What if I were to cover this? Oh, well, wait a second. I'm covering the remote. Sorry, and it's still working. So maybe you're right. All right. So that shouldn't work. That wouldn't work if it's infrared, would it?
Yeah, but I also don't necessarily see like an antenna, a circuit board antenna, though.
All right. This is a mystery to be solved.
I know, right?
All right. I'm not going to solve it now. So, so anyway, you should be able. But if you have,
I don't know if this will work for that one. It might not.
I'm gonna. So. Oh, I just cut it here. If I plug in a second strand of lights, it should respond to the same. Oh, wow, it's a little crowded. Let's see. If I plug in a second strand of lights to this and use the same remote, let's see. They should.
This remote does not work with that strand. Oh, wait.
Yes, you can see they're both. One remote's controlling both strands at the same time. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I mean it's a bit of a bummer.
Mine is. My remote for my 100 strand works on my 200 strand as well. So yeah. They're not smart enough to be paired to a remote. It's just, they all just respond to the same commands from any remote that's sending them.
Yeah, actually that was I mean, and that's mostly the case with cheap remotes you get with LEDs. For my son's birthday party, we ordered, I know I'm digressing, and I will get back to programming LEDs, but we ordered, you can buy these little stands with a remote for edge-lit and do edge-lit acrylic, and they come with a little remote. So I made each kid at the party for a party favor. I laser cut their name in a little acrylic thing, and I gave them each
that's
one,
so cute.
And then I gave them to them, and then they discovered that each of those remotes would control all the others, and I basically spent the whole party like changing.
So it was like remote wars. Yeah, I love it. It's like each one of them had like a little TV be gone, right?
That's exactly right. Yes, you have everybody. Yes, remote controls. Like, what did we do before remote controls? Okay, so let's talk about coding because that is actually remarkably fun. So, yeah, the controller I was starting with. Let me find what I put it. Ernie's here. Oh, Ernie is here. Let me follow Ernie's wires to the controller. There we go. This one's called a Pixelblaze, and it's a neat little controller, and of course, the wires I so hastily slapped together just came out. But basically, it is actually surprisingly easy to use. You have to solder on this connector. It doesn't come soldered on, but it's just literally 4 pins. And it has screw terminals for the, what you have to do is snip the wires. I actually, for these blobs, because I like to change the connectors, soldered on what's a standard 3-pin LED connector. The trick you have to be careful for when you actually do, if you do cut the wires and add a different connector, is that unlike most LED strings, the middle string is the middle wire is neutral, is ground.
Oh, the middle wire is.
Yeah, the middle wire is ground. It's, yes, exactly, right? Yeah, it's
different.
And you can identify the 5-volt wire because it's copper colored. The other two are silver colored. There's a copper colored 5-volt wire. The middle wire is neutral, is ground, and then the remaining wire is.
And that's on the LEDs or on the USB controller side of the wires. It's not on the strands itself.
No, it's on the that it is the strand. If you're looking at the strand, the middle wire all down the strand is the.
Yeah, but the copper colored. Sorry, the color coding.
Oh! I see what you're saying. Yeah. I guess you're right. Yes, you're correct. There's no difference. Okay. You can't tell. Yeah, that is
right.
Correct.
So so the copper color is in this part of it.
Yes. Yeah, it's only on the. You are correct. The controller wire, but that's where you want to splice. You don't. That's the best place to splice it anyhow. But yes.
Right.
All right. So one thing about, and again, if you're new to like powering electronics, LEDs pull a fairly high amount of current. So if you have LEDs running off a microcontroller, you're really better off having a separate power source for the LEDs, or not running all of your power through your microcontroller, because most microcontrollers weren't made to power something really power intensive.
Yeah.
So
they can power a few LEDs, but not like a string of 100.
So the way so the Pixelblaze comes with an input. You could actually plug in a 5-volt input, and and if you wanted to output the wires, but that runs a heck of a lot of current through the Pixelblaze, and they don't recommend it. So the way I've done it is not very prettily. I've got this 5-volt cable that terminates in this little screw terminal. I've got a wire for ground and a wire for 5 volts. And so I take 5 volts directly into the screw terminal. So part of it powers the Pixelblaze, and then there's another wire to power the LED, another wire that sends the power to the LEDs. So it doesn't actually go through the Pixelblaze controller to power the LEDs. So I think I've screwed those wires back into the hold.
Separate power for the LEDs.
Separate power for LEDs. So now, if I plug plug Ernie into the Pixelblaze, plug the Pixelblaze into power. Now I've already configured this, but it's pretty easy to configure. If I turn it on, and let's get my Keepa out of the way here. So, okay, Ernie starts to show program, but what's really cool is the way you control this LED pattern program. Like Ernie, look at the camera, Ernie. So let me pull up the Pixelblaze window and do a share.
Yeah, we can put that on.
Hang on one second. Let me find the right window. There it is. It's actually an amazingly cool program that I've just lost the window for. There we are. There we are. Okay. Let me get it bigger and share. Okay. There it is. So, so it's run through it's controlled through the computer. So hopefully we'll be able to see the blob. Can we do it so we see the? Oh yeah. So we can see the Ernie and the Pixelblaze. So this is actually really an amazingly cool interface. It's a little hard to read the lettering probably, but it comes with a bunch of patterns built in, and you access this over Wi-Fi, and you can actually, you configure it when you get it. It starts up an access point, and you tell it how to connect your Wi-Fi, and you tell it how many LEDs you have. Like this, I told it my blob has 200 LEDs, and they're GRB. I think they're. Oh, by the way, if you're new to LEDs, different strands have different color orders. Yeah.
Yep. So the message packet, and this is like there's a reason that this has mail analogies. It is like sending a message to something else, right? Like so it's bundled in little packets, and the packet has an order, because inside each of these LEDs, there are actually 3 LEDs. There's a red LED, a green LED, and a blue LED. And depending upon how bright each of those ones is and in relation to the others, that's what makes the colors change, is the mixing of the red, green, and the blue light.
Oh, and there's some really fun science. I got distracted by Jason's comment, which I won't mention in a minute. And but, exactly.
We've had our first casualty.
That's when your zip ties are too small, or too big rather. But oh no, now I've completely derailed my train of thought. Something about red, green. Oh yeah, so there's a whole bunch of really fascinating science about color mixing of light, because we're all used to mixing paint colors, and light colors mix in the opposite way. And I love this, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because that's a whole other thing. But it's really kind of interesting. So you tell it the color order, and and what's really cool is there's this mapper here, and you can actually so it will actually, you could tell it what configuration. You write a little bit of your configuration your LEDs are in, and it will actually kind of assume they're in a certain position in 3D space and actually run the program to, some programs actually will, some patterns are 3D patterns, some patterns are 2D patterns. And if that's the case, it will run them in the appropriate configuration. Now, I have not put in, so you could very easily do that for your nicely ordered, tidy blob. It's a little harder for mine, but I can approximate, and I haven't done that yet. But you could do like a cube, for example, if I load that. And you can see, and it's this wonderful display. So I'm going to approximate, you know what, we're going to approximate my blob as a cube and see how that affects the patterns. We'll see if we can make a lot of that. So, all right, so let's save that. We're going to, okay, so we have a 200.
Can you do a cylinder shape?
I don't think that's one of the built. Yes, you can. I can't, I'm not savvy enough. Coding in front of people is not my forte. So I can't, we're going to approximate the blob as a cube and go back to patterns.
Cool.
And then
good enough for the engineer and me.
Yeah. So
we're going, pi is 3. We're going to approximate this shape as a cube.
Oh, but here's what's interesting. So I've got the color order wrong. You can tell because I've selected a this pattern that's supposed to be red, 1D, 2D.
Oh,
and you can see my blob is green. So let's go fix that. We'll go back to settings, and instead of GRB, let's assume it's RGB, or probably RGB, and save.
Nice.
Oh yeah, no, I fixed it. I didn't even have to save. Okay, so now.
Oh my gosh, I love how it starts at an I.
Oh, that's actually really funny. Yeah, that is a little weird.
Is that intentional or no?
Not in the slightest. No. But there's such great patterns. But here's like, and you just literally click to change the patterns, and it's super easy. And some of them you can change the brightness with this control. But some of these patterns have parameters that you can change. So for example, this tunnel of squares 2D, actually that one's not showing up here. Let's do a different one. Color fade pulse. Here, this one's like, you can actually, it doesn't have parameters though. Let's find one with parameters. Oh, I like the fire one. Let's see, does that have parameters? No, of course not. Let's see. There's some sound reactive ones. This board, you can buy a sensor board that will respond to different motion and sound and things like that, and make your blob sound reactive, which is a lot of fun too. If you can see the octahedron behind me is in sound reactive mode. It's running off a sound reactive Pixelblaze, and it's changing with my voice. So it's like, here, if you could, if I'm really loud and yell at it, it'll change accordingly. So oh, wait a second, am I doing no, I'm doing the blob here. Okay. So anyway, so what's nice about this is there's a lot of wonderful, really good built-in patterns. Let's try to find a 3D one. So let's see, there's a spotlight one. I don't know, that's supposed to, yeah, you can kind of see it moving in 3D space around the blob. I love that effect.
Neat.
Can you kind of see how that's
neat?
And
so this is a Pixelblaze, which is like a controller that's $35, I think.
Yeah.
And you have a separate source of power, a 5-volt power that's powering separately the Pixelblaze and the LED strip. And then the LED strip just has the one like command line coming from the one like, instruction line basically coming from the Pixelblaze.
The Pixelblaze takes care of a lot of math for you. And again, here's like a spotlight. Let me see another built-in. There's Sign Pulse 3D. So anyway, there's some really cool ones. But then you can start to customize them, and it's not so hard. Each of these patterns, and you can add more,
Oh,
is
look at
code.
that sparkliness. I
know
love
this is a
it.
really nice pattern for 3D.
Yeah.
Each of these patterns is written in JavaScript code, and you can start by just modifying it simply and seeing what changes it makes.
Oh,
So
yeah.
for example, like, let me find a simpler one. Let's go back that I'll know what I'm doing when I'm editing it. Let's go back.
Do you know what chip the Pixelblaze is using, Debra?
It's a ESP32, I think.
Okay.
Is it? It's very well supported. It's very well supported. There is a whole what's the word I'm looking for? There's a whole community of people with a lot of postings. You ask questions and people answer, and people are always contributing new code. I'm a big fan.
Mom is done, and I have to say that I am practically done too with mine. I have 2 LEDs left, which is the point at which I finish.
Do you want to pull? Let me give me one more minute to wrap this up, and then
yeah. Keep doing that, and then we'll show that.
Okay, so here's the kit. I think this is one I actually modified because I was like, I think I was playing around with it because the kit program was like has a fixed color. Oh yeah, this one I changed it to evolve the different colors. So so the original pattern had only one color, and then I modified it to kind of evolve the color over time. And it's really super simple to learn to edit it. Well, if you have if you've never coded before, it's a little harder, but there's a nice community around it, and people have definitely learned to code by doing so. So for example, here's a simple one. So I could just change the color here. HSV, like V equals pixel. All right, I'm saying it's easy now. Of course, I'm not. I'm like confused as to how I do it. But
pressure's on.
Yeah, I'm not good at coding in front of people, so I'm gonna bow out. But some of these you can. Let's see, color twinkle buns. Anyway, you can do such fun things with it, and you can edit and create really cool. Again, 3D mapping. If you start to do things in 3D spaces, is generally really hard. And I've worked with 3D animations before. This makes it so much easier. I can't even go into the ways it does it, but it's done very cleverly. Yeah. It creates a cube of 3D space, very easily mapped. And if it's the kind of thing you're interested in, I do strongly recommend Pixelblaze. All right, do you want to show how you bring your blob home?
Yeah. So
okay.
I have my tube here. Oh, let me. Yeah.
Oh, I did it.
There. Perfect. So I have my tube here. So you could also, I don't know, feed me. And I have 2 LEDs left on the strand here. So I've knit in the round until I got 2 left. And so now to bind off, I'm just going to thread it through all of my like open loops here. So instead of like knitting this LED through my next stitch, I'm just going to put it through. And so I'm doing it, inside to outside, and then I'll do the next one the same way. And here it's very easy to accidentally miss that you've dropped a stitch. So just make sure that your stitches are connected before you thread it through. And going around, and going around. And I think I got one more. Yep. And so then I just pull it, and then I basically pull it until I kind of have like one, LED left. And I love how they end the strand on an LED too. Like, I don't know.
Yes, that's frustrating. Cool. You know what I did with that one for a different project for that ring behind me, because I needed a way to attach it to something.
Oh.
And it ends on a pixel, and I needed to attach it. Yeah. I took some clear shrink tube and shrunk it over so then I could pull the end that extended past. It became a little bit of a string extending past the last pixel.
Nice. Yeah.
So that was my strategy for that. But yeah, it becomes cool. If you want to extend it, that's one technique.
Yeah. And so now when I'm back to sort of the original here, I just start wrapping it around. So I wrap it around. I don't cinch it too tight. I don't cinch it like super tight like I would a hat, because it's kind of cute if he has like a little mouth here, So I leave him a little mouth, and then I just wrap the LED around like maybe 2 or 3 times, not too many times. And then I'll kind of wrap it back on itself. This is new, hot off the press technique. Wrap it back on itself until it's just, nicely bound off. And then, could you get some Googly eyes. Yes, we need googly eyes.
Yes. Oh yeah.
We
What do you
can't
actually?
light up without the googly eyes. It's
So,
not
yeah, I'm
allowed. Not
curious to
allowed.
see how you attach them, because that was I've experimented with a
So
couple different things.
I will say I think the hardest part of this entire thing is attaching the googly eyes. So we've taped them. It might actually be easier to hot glue them. I think so. Definitely don't be shy with the hot glue guns there. I'm going to unzoom a little bit now, so you can see full on. Oh, what is this? What is going on here? Yeah. So we could do a little more. Oh, that's pretty cute.
Oh, that's really cute.
Pretty cute. Yeah, I think those are good ones.
Those
The
are
same,
smallest
the
ones we have
smallest
of
ones.
size.
Yeah, the same 2-inch ones. And then,
Of tape.
yeah. Well, we can do them temporarily for now. So these eyes do have, peel and stick backings. They don't really stick very well by themselves to this knit blob though, because there's just not enough. There's not like enough wire there for them to really get a good bite. So, so I'm just gonna stick them temporarily for right now.
Have you actually, given that they have a peel and stick backing, if you put like a little piece of paper around?
That's what we did. So the hardest part was fishing a piece of tape through here, and it kind of turned it over, fished a piece of tape through, and just stuck the eye down. And that's what we did for this guy, and it works pretty well. And I thank you. And so now. And like the sticky, the sticky back works for a little bit, but then it gets not sticky enough.
And
but,
then
oh my God, baby blob!
Oh, it's so cute. All right, makes me happy. You got it.
Okay, now I'm going to untwist tie the rest of my cord. Yeah. Oh, and like if you're building blobs, please post on Twitter and/or Instagram. Hashtag Build-a-Blob. No, all one word, no dashes or anything like that. So, all right.
I would love to see what people come up with.
Yeah.
Mom, if you're watching,
yay!
you can send me the picture.
Look at that.
So cute.
So cute.
Oh,
we got baby blob and bigger blob. Bigger, better blob.
You have some blob rivalry going on.
It's a Fifth Element reference. Bigga bada boom. When she like falls out of a 10-story building or something. But yeah, so the built-in patterns to these are pretty cool. Like these are just the built-in, just out of the box. We haven't done any programming or anything on this. So you have like these little chasing ones that then stack, which I think is kind of neat. You have ones that just chase each other, and then you have rainbow.
Oh yeah, I love the rainbow.
Little sparkle, other sparkle, fixed, more sparkle. Bloop 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 bloop. I like that one because it's sort of pulsing aliveness.
I think that's
and off. And then, I kind of like the chasing ones, because it shows you how it was built, right? It goes all the way from the start, all the way around and spirals to the end. So
yes, those are the ones that on mine, if I realize I've reversed direction, make it very obvious. Halfway through, but those do look good. Are you going to be using these as Halloween decorations?
Build-a-Blob is what we're doing. Let's see.
Yes. Build a blob. Sorry, not A instead of B. Bob. Yeah. Yes. Build a blob. Thank you. I'm dying to see what.
Yeah. We can be. I always forget that these are things. Oh, no, not folder. How do you use this thing? Build-a-Blob.
Right.
Boom.
I am so impressed
Did that not work?
that.
You gotta click on it.
Oh, I gotta click on it. Show. Thank you.
Are you pulling
right there?
All right.
Hashtag Build-a-Blob.
All right. Yeah. I'm so impressed that you finished yours. There's no way mine will be done in this a lot of time, but it will be a good project to work on if I'm catching up on TV shows later. So
I think it's a really nice size, nice length knitting project. The knit version for somebody who's an experienced knitter already. The 100 LED strand. It took like about an hour. And, you know, I was chatting and not paying strict attention during the whole thing. And I think that the 200 LED strand took me like about 2 hours. Like, it's pretty, yeah.
That's reasonable. That's nice. It is nice. And you can keep going. That's the thing is once it's done, you can change the color patterns. You can program it. You can do, you know, you can customize it that way. And, you know, then you can, again, once you start having more of them, you can make them interact. You can build a family. You can, yeah, I'm not quite sure. It actually could evolve into a blob hoarding situation quite easily.
It could. I hear that they multiply.
Yeah.
So that went over the Pixelblaze and how to change colors with Pixelblaze.
Yes. So I'm
Yeah, so there were other interesting kind of challenges with other platforms because they're the fixed address style LEDs that Arduino's and CircuitPython kind of sort of doesn't have specific support for, but some things still work with them.
Yeah,
right?
I'll give a brief overview because I know we're running later. So, okay, but yeah, it's like
6:35. Yeah, you know, I say we totally end at 7, but we can talk as long as we want, or if we're out of stuff, we can end early. That's fine.
Okay, too. Yes, but here, you start me talking on LEDs, and it doesn't end.
There's no such thing as like too much LED chat. No such thing.
Correct. so far we've discovered there's no limit on LED chat, zip ties, and I think. I can't remember the third, but all right. So yeah, the platforms that work, I did try programming them with a number of different platforms. Pixelblaze worked beautifully. One, I don't need to spend all the time demonstrating it, but Pixelblaze is awesome and easy to use. There's an LED program or app that I'm fairly new to called WLED that it's open source. It's super cheap. You can, if you have your own ESP32 or ESP8266, I'll show you. Bert, yes, is being controlled by WLED right now. And why is he not? Because he's not plugged in. If I plug him in, he will start to. There you go. He's actually controlled by patterns, and I can again. It's a similar interface to the Pixelblaze in that I can just show it really quickly. I'll just pull it up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the nice interactivity for programming it, but it's really powerful, and you can download the code onto any ESP you have, and it's super easy to do. Yeah, especially on ESP8266 or ESP32, it's pretty well documented. Let me get to share screen, and yeah, here. Okay, and again, I'm still fairly new to this program, but yeah, it's down there. To WLED, but it has a lot of built-in patterns. You can actually, there's a branch of it, so I can change. So here, I'll take Ernie out of the way, but you can change.
Ooh, this is fancy.
Really nice, yeah, and you can go back. You can just do solid. You can change just change the colors literally by dragging around that, color sphere. And there's a lot of just really interesting patterns, and it's configured not too dissimilarly from Pixelblaze, but it's super easy to install. Like even if you don't know how to code, you just get an ESP32. And there's an online installer that you literally just connect this is amazing to me that you can do this. I love this technology, that you just connect your ESP to your computer, go to the installer, it finds it, and will download it on there for you. Thanks, Carrie's mom. Your quilting skills are amazing, by the way, amazing. So, so it's really easy to flash it on there. You just have to figure, and then you just hook up. It tells you can configure. If you go to the settings, you can configure like which of the pins it's outputting the signal on. You can configure a lot of things. How much you can limit the current, for example, if you wanted to limit that. You tell how many. You change the number of LEDs, and there's also, I think you tell it somewhere. The color order right there. Nice. And it's, again, really easy to configure, really easy to load different patterns. You can create a playlist. You can do this in Pixelblaze too, where it goes through them. And I'm sure there's more, but it's remarkably easy to use, and it's like you can get an ESP, for ESP controller for just a few dollars. And
like $5 or something like that. Yeah. So this is something that like runs natively on the ESP 32 or
82, actually 82, 66, 32, and then maybe some other platforms I'm not knowing. I know
Cool.
Jason has written code for that.
Nice.
But, oh, by the way, there's a couple Halloween. This is the Halloween. Oh wait, what happened to my? Oh, there we go. Oh, it shorted out a little bit when I was debugging. When I was trying to debug, I was trying to figure out why. So Pixelblaze and WLED worked very nicely on the blobs, but I had a lot of problems getting it to work with CircuitPython. And what I ended up finding out, well, I don't know exactly why, but I could get it to work on the faster chips running CircuitPython. I could write my own code on a Raspberry Pi 2040, and it actually worked fine. Oh, I thought you worked on WLED. Maybe somebody else I know did. Huh. Jason says he hasn't used it, but keeps meaning to try it. I recommend it, Jason. It's actually like, it's so easy. And you just literally take it. It couldn't be easier to use. And it's just the install. I still can't get over how nice and clean and easy the install onto the microcontroller is. But so that's WLED. That's kind of my overview. This is a Halloween. I like that there's a Halloween one. Let's try Halloween eyes. Let's see what happens. Well, I think that's. Oh, I see. There's two pixels that light up. Oh, like it's supposed to have the eye. That works better.
The eyes on the other side.
Yeah, the eyes give me. That doesn't work so much on a blob shape, but I like the Halloween colors. So, all right. So that I recommend Pixelblaze and WLED for like really powerful programs. WLED is super cheap. Pixelblaze has a wonderful, easy interface. I'm going to stop the screen sharing, and I'll just show you. And if you want to get more granular and actually write your own code to do it. I've been doing a lot of LED coding in CircuitPython just because it's so easy to prototype, and it's just, you don't have to compile your code. Python is an interpreted language. You make a change, it propagates, boom. But it also takes a fair amount of computing power to run Python on a microcontroller, and the timing, while these are fixed address, the timing of they use the same interface as regular WS2812B NeoPixels, but I think there's something slightly different about it. So I could write code that would run on if you run an M0 controller, if you run CircuitPython on there, it would work on regular LEDs, but not on the fixed address ones.
Interesting. So even the timing is different on those than the
maybe. Oh, I was wondering if just the delay, like when you're trying to run CircuitPython, I think I could get a few going. I couldn't get 200 going. Again, I don't know if it's timing or just the combination of CircuitPython being slow plus the because it can't be absolutely the timing, because I was able to get it to work on a faster controller.
Okay.
So the CircuitPython did work. I got it to work on in fact, little Blob is now, I actually did some surgery on him right before showtime and put baby Blob on this is a Pimoroni board designed for RGB LEDs, which is really kind of nice for any LED strings. It's this Plasma 2040, because again, it has this nice little screw terminal, which makes it just so easy, because I'm constantly swapping my controllers and my
nice
and my strings. I was also able to get it to work on a Clue, which runs off of a I can't forget, Nordic something semiconductor.
Right.
Yeah, so if you have a fast enough controller, CircuitPython will work. It's the slower controllers, they won't. So I couldn't get it to work. I like to code with kids, and I couldn't get it to work with a microbit. I couldn't get it to work with like a Trinket or a Gemma. But anything a little bit faster, any board that's a little bit faster, the 2040 based boards, like a Pico, or the NRF, whatever series you're working on, is nice, because I had one work pretty well, actually. So
this is NRF 52840. Is that
it? Yes. Yes, that's it. That's, I think, what the Clue is based on. Although, yeah, it was a little bit weirder than that, because that's the board in the microbit, I believe, or maybe that's the board in the microbit too, or maybe a slightly slower one. I couldn't get it to work on that. So I'm not, again, yeah. Liz says she's written it too many times in guides. Yeah, you start to like know all the numbers. Yeah, Sam. Yeah, the chips do have different clock rates, but it was weird to me that I could get regular WS2812 strings to work and not these fixed address ones. So there's clearly something slightly different. So yeah, in the end, I was trying so hard to what I found something weird too. I wondered if I don't know. I wondered if it was like propagation time on the blob. Or sometimes like there's obviously when you have a really long LED string with voltage input onto just one end, there's a voltage drop across the blob. And I'd wondered, there's some, so I had tried actually, a little surgery on Bert's rear end. I gave him some extra inputs here because it's a bus, you can hook the signal on both ends, right? So I put the power signal on both ends.
Bert's got a tail.
Bert, we had to do the little experimental surgery on Bert.
He had a butt lift.
Yeah. Bert had a Brazilian butt lift. Yeah. So yeah, it's still a little bit inconclusive, but I'd wondered if, because there's a whole bunch of things tied in, because most of the time you're powering the LEDs ideally at 5 volts. You're sending usually a 3.3 volt signal in. Now, in a perfect world, like people who work with LEDs, you're really supposed to level shift the signal up. You can almost always get away with not doing that.
Until you can't. Right until you can't.
Well, but I did try level shifting it, and that didn't solve the problem. But I had wondered if it was this weird thing where I was getting pixels. It was very strange. I was getting pixels in Bert's butt lighting up and not Bert's front. And I'd wondered if that the signal voltage, because the signal usually needs to trigger in these standard WS2812 LEDs, the signal voltage needs to reach the trigger threshold needs to reach 70% of the LED voltage.
I wonder if the addressable ones are a higher load on that line, on the data line. And I wonder if the difference is that the higher power, the higher power processors have a higher current output on their data lines, maybe.
It is entirely possible. Again, it's not entirely clear because, again, it works like what, so if that's the only issue, then it shouldn't matter what microcontroller I hook it up to running a 3 volt signal, it shouldn't work. And that's not the case. So again, it's not entirely clear to me. I wasn't able to definitively narrow it down to isolate the problem. And, I stopped eventually trying. Okay, and Liz says there's an
issue with CircuitPython and the NeoPixel library with ESP32 boards where there's weird glitching, but not sure if that explains the M0 issues. Yeah.
No, these work pretty well. I mean, I'm using an ESP32 running, again, this is the WLED, and that works fine. And Sam says the microbit uses a different chip, which is less powerful than Clue. Yes, that is true. But I think there's microbit V2, which has a more powerful chip, and that neither of those work. It is a bit of a mystery, and I gave up trying to solve it, but I'm sure somebody with a little more persistence, probably, if I had an oscilloscope and I started tracking down the signal, that would probably actually be very clarifying. Although the problem is, to check the signal in this, you got to start desoldering. In different places, and it's I mean, it would be.
Hey, we have a strip that is now the the sacrificial strip. So maybe we'll do a little poking around.
You have the contact point. Yeah, it would be actually interesting if you want to. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have a lot of experience with scopes. So if you want to have a hunt for the actual problem, I can certainly tell you what I've tried. And we could even, we could make it a list hunting. There's a blob hunting. I like it. I do. This could be a whole. I mean, you can run this whole blob thing like into the ground if you really try. But yes, it was an interesting phenomenon that I never did solve. But again, you can work around it. There's enough microcontrollers out there that are cheap and powerful that it's not really a limitation on what you can do. And like I said, it's really, really fun. I think I'm inspired to try to do some actual spherical 3D mapping and see if I can come up with some fun, especially Halloween patterns. I don't know if it's probably dense enough to really get work like a screen and really have but when you start to have a mesh, a mesh surface, you can really, you run into the ideas of kind of almost getting animations on. And there's things I'd like to try. So, look at that happy blob family. And their happy blob cousins. So microbit V1 uses okay. Oh, so
16 versus M0 versus an M4. That's a pretty big difference. Yeah.
That is a pretty big
difference between microbit version 1 and microbit version 2.
Yeah, I found that neither of them work. Though it also may be a possibility that, I mean, I was trying to use the drag and drop feature. I suspect if I programmed the microbit with Arduino, it probably would work.
No.
I think
now, tell me again, what version was working on original Blob that was sound reactive and with a circuit Playground Express?
I was running it on Clue. Clue did work.
Oh, Clue.
Clue worked, and it was running. Was it running in CircuitPython or was it Arduino? Oh, hang on. It definitely worked in the Clue with Arduino.
Okay.
No. It actually no. I know it was running. It was running CircuitPython on Clue, and it did work as sound reactive.
Okay.
That did. Because I had some animations on the screen at the same time, and it worked fine. But yes, the Clue is an NRF 52840. I think, Liz. if you wrote a guide for it, you would probably know. So again, that one was clearly fast enough to handle it. I ran into a lot of problems with the M0 and M4, just the the itsy bitsies and the Adafruit M0 and M4 boards didn't do it. Yes. Right. Oh, thanks. All right, that's good. I got that. Okay. I was looking at the screen when I read that number though. I don't have it memorized. So anyway, so mystery for further exploration. If you're interested, we can do the blog bug hunt. So
yeah.
So yes, Clue with CircuitPython does work. That is the first clue.
Right.
We can explore that possibility. So
cool.
So again, there's just so many ways to kind of to check them out. There's so many fun things you can do with LEDs. So again, I'm going to make a hat. This will be my Halloween cap.
Yeah, I feel like also like with the knitting, there's so many things that you could do with knitting. I mean, I just like made a simple tube, but you could do flat things. I feel like I want to maybe try to do like a lace pattern and make like a piece of wall art. So you could like definitely incorporate like different knit stitches to make different shapes. And I think that would be super fun.
Well, if you did, if you took like, if you knit a square shape, then you have an LED matrix, and then you can start scrolling text across. Then you can do all kinds of things with your LED matrix, text and images. Yeah. Not kidding. If Liz made curtains out of zip ties, you could do a whole.
Yeah.
Good Lord, you could drape the whole room. It look a little bit like my office, I think.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. It might happen. Although we have like many of the normal addressable LED strips that we've been adding to things and thinking of more things, and yeah,
they've come out with a new, actually I have to say my new discovery is I've just ordered some of a new version that what was exciting about these is the problem with bending typical LED strips is that the solder joints break, and of course you have to solder each LED to the wires.
Right. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh yep. Time for more zip ties.
Jason is out of zip ties.
That's because you shouldn't have zip tied your hands. You're gonna you regret that now, don't you?
Yeah.
And you're gonna solder in a pair of 3-pin connectors. So it's a good idea. The 3-pin connectors, that's what I do. It's really, really handy if you want to do experiments with different controllers. I tend to create these really cursed assemblies of this is a controller, it's like 3 different with header pins and jumper cables and little. So there's a whole variety of ways to connect it to the controller. But anyway, sorry, lost my train of thought there. But the trick is what's nice about these and why they're such a good wearable project is because they do have the flex, and you don't have to worry about separating it from the wires from the LED. But the earlier versions of these, this is kind of the second version of these LED strings. The first one looked really cool, but the enamel coating on the initial strands wasn't so good, and they tend to rub together, and you got a lot of shorts. They've definitely improved that. They've definitely improved that with this version. These are like billed as outdoor LED strings, but they've come up. Even so, these wires, I wouldn't put them in a wearable that was going to get a ton of wear, because if it's really flexible, I think that eventually the enamel would wear. You get shorts, you get a break. They've come up with a version of LED strings held together by wires, where they've gone ahead and the same way there's a resin coating on here that that keeps the solder connections intact. That instead of these enameled LED wires, there's a new version that I just found. If those of you who like to troll BTF Lighting and Ray Wu's websites, they're on both of those on AliExpress.
Interesting.
So they're so they won't make blobs. It won't be quite as flexible, but they're going to be great for wearables because there's a resin cover over all the solder joints and the wires are still pretty flexible and you're going to get a lot easier that. So I've ordered some and I'm looking forward to some new projects when they come. So speaking of, yeah, that's the problem is they keep coming out with new stuff. So it's not a great idea to like stock up on a bunch because there'll always be something new.
It's a little bit of a wormhole, you know, or rabbit hole, whatever hole, blob hole.
Jason has an LED Keepa. Oh, that's good. So do I. Although mine, I didn't clip off all the zip. We do need, remember, you post that picture with the hashtag, Jason. We want the LED Keepa.
Definitely. Build-a-Blob.
Build-a-Blob Keepa. So yeah, that maybe we'll start a new trend in the bar mitzvah world. LED yarmulkes.
Why not?
You never know. You never know what it's going to take. But yeah, so but yeah, the flex, you know, there's all sorts. I'm sure there's a million ways to use these I haven't even thought of yet. So like Keepas are just the beginning. Oh, yeah.
Bob, yes, we will be putting links in tomorrow, in the description tomorrow. Robin does a lovely job of going through things and taking notes and bookmarking our streams as well. So if there was something that you wanted to come back to and you like sort of knew roughly where it was, that hopefully makes it a little bit easier for you. Or to like send people to watch it, like if there was like a, you know, a specific thing. Yeah, if there's anything in particular that you want to make sure that we link, definitely let us know here in the comments now, or in the chat now, or in the comments, you know, later. And we'll be happy to dig those up for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll give you the links to like the WLED and things like that. I didn't mention their sites.
Yeah, and WLED and Pixelblazes and the ESP stuff and maybe the clues and the microbits and the all the things.
All the things.
all the things.
Yeah, just yeah. So
cool.
Well, I could keep. Well, I'm going to be working on this all night, so I'm.
I'm super excited that I started and finished a project.
I am so impressed.
Boom on the stream.
Well, that's what happened.
Oh! I just realized that my shirt is also very apropos of this. It is. I mean, it's technically a pinball shirt, right? That I got from the Pacific Pinball Museum when I went there a couple weeks ago, which is in Alameda. If you are anywhere near Alameda and you like pinball, Alameda, California, and you like pinball, you have to go to the Pacific Pinball Museum. $20, as many games as you want to play. They're all on free play.
Wow. That's
and it makes
shirt.
Yeah, I want more pinball machines now. I need another pinball machine. I have one, but one clearly isn't enough.
Oh dear. I don't know. Like if you could somehow like create pinball software or something, maybe you could eject as a work expense.
So I need to look into it more, but one of the guys who like does the Macrofab podcast, I think, like is involved in some sort of like open source hardware pinball machine shenanigans, and like I should definitely dig up the deets on that because I think that's an interesting kind of thing.
I think that is actually a really
Could we add legs to an LED blob? I don't know if you could add necessarily functional legs. That might be blobby, right?
Wait, what are the functions? No, you mean functional in that they light up or functional that they walk?
Functional in that they walk.
Oh, okay.
Walk.
Yeah, that's
harder. I think we could definitely add decorative legs though to a blob. If you're so inclined, but I don't know. I feel like the blobs to me are more like glowworms, so they're more like wiggly things that don't have legs. This is my version of blobs.
A little bit like a stress ball, honestly. The texture, it feels it's very soothing to kind of squeeze it.
Yeah, like I think that yours are a little bit like cooler, squishier format. Like I feel like the knit ones are like a little more stiff, but they're still like very like blobby and kind of fun to squish.
if you could kind of compress them along the long axis, right? And compress and stretch. Does that work or no? Like
it does. You do because the wire then like resets and kind of takes the shape. If you stretch it out, then you have to kind of like kind of get in there and pull it all out again if you want it to be, you know, sort of squatter. But you I mean you can do whatever you want with the blob. It's your blob.
That's right. Yes,
if you want to add legs to your blob, add legs to your blob.
That's exactly. Well, that's like blob evolution, right? That's
yeah,
how it starts, right?
Yeah. I mean,
they start they start to walk, and then on land they start to walk upright, and then
then they take over the world. That's cool.
Right.
Then we say hey to our blob masters.
That is correct.
Our blob overlords.
That's right. That's a world I want to live in. Our new blob overlords sound very, very good to me. So, but yeah, that'd be pretty. Honestly, if a blob walked up to me, I'd be kind of curious to know what it had to say. So, yeah, it's a. But yeah, it is like but yeah, the nice thing, by the way, but you're saying like if it gets stretched out, the nice thing about my approach is if anything gets stretched out, you just zip tie it back in place.
Yeah.
You never zip ties solve a host of ills. So it is.
I know. I feel like once I started with the no zip tie aesthetic, I had to just like keep going with it. Like I don't feel like it would be appropriate for me to add zip ties to fix mistakes to the knit one, just because it's, you know.
No,
but you know what? That's just me. That's just me and my blob rules. You can have different blob rules.
That is correct. You can have your own. It's your blob, and you'll zip if you want to, and you'll not
blob how you want.
But yeah, no, I mean, the thing I like about yours is again the predictability of the pattern. I think you can do some really cool stuff with mapping on that like I would probably play with.
And I just got a Pixelblaze the other day, so my very first one. So we might have to try that. Oh, I like the idea of connectorizing it so that we can like use it for many different things. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, that's an easy. If you those 3-pin connectors are super cheap and ubiquitous.
I have a ton of them. I have a ton of them from the strip.
Yeah. No, they do. They do tend to accumulate. They're a little bit like kudzu. They just start to like proliferate. I have a bunch of those too.
Cool.
Yep. The later Bob Start program. They was self-replicate. Bob says the later Bob Start program. Yeah, becomes of self-replicating blobs. Then we're all in big trouble.
Definitely.
Yeah, they coding themselves for the. All right, now I've lost track of which is the front and which is the back of these LEDs. So I'm going to plug this guy in and figure it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's like 7. So.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
I know. Is there anything else we wanted to chat about in blob land before we call it? Is there anything else that anybody else who's still watching has questions on or wants to chat about? I'm feeling pretty good that like 2 1/4 blobs were definitely made, and however much of Debra's blob got made. I'm glad you're able to watch live too, Liz. Yay!
Oh, Liz, we're so glad you came. And yes, and Bob, thank you everybody for coming to watch. Yes. And yeah, I'm very happy.
Bob could make one with wings. I like it.
I would
flying blob, angel blobs, or devil blobs.
Or devil blobs.
Really have wings. Demons have wings. There we go. Yeah.
What are the angels with cherubim?
Oh, cherubim blobs.
You've already got that. Like they have the hundreds of eyes already. You've already got that. Like, right? You just have to add. If you've seen the picture, you know the
cherubims have lots of eyes. I thought that they were just like cute little baby things that flew.
No, there's the origin kind of a cherubim. Yeah, it's a cherubim. If you read A Wrinkle in Time, if you go way back, pull it into your head. That was the cherubim had lots of eyes, lots of wings. And on my last trip, I was actually looking at some ancient churches, and they had some depictions of that, like a cherubim with, again, it was wings and eyes everywhere.
Whoa!
It's actually really cool. Yeah, I'll send you some pictures. We'll put a link to cherubim in the after this talk. But you actually kind of could justify turning one of these into that. You need to figure out a way to do lots of wings, maybe feathers. I don't know.
Interesting. So there were some funny pictures in response to some of the blob stuff. Bye, Jason.
Bye, Jason.
Yeah. So somebody posted on one of the tweets that we made about blobs. a picture of a woman just with her face covered with googly eyes.
I posted that.
You posted that. That's right.
posted
Okay.
that.
And somebody posted another one
Yes.
too, like
With a
later on,
mugging.
like maybe in response to that too. And like, oh my God, it was so funny and so creepy. Like all I could think about was, oh my God, taking those off must have stung. Like, God.
Yeah, that could be. I think some maker, I want to say Simone Giersch.
I don't
Giersch?
guess.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know
and
how
it might not be her. It might have been somebody else made a shirt of googly eyes. It was a really interesting. It looked really. I'll see if I can track that down too. So yeah, they're not just googly eyes. Can go anywhere.
That's right.
Absolutely
That's
anywhere.
right. Oh, cool.
Very
Awesome.
cool.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. This is super fun. Get your blobs on. We definitely want to see your blobs. # Build-a-Blob. And yeah, I'm sure the blobs will evolve and we'll be back with Blob Round 2 at some point in time.
The blobs will abide. And yes, I look for. Thank you for get on the blob bandwagon now. You'll be glad.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yay, thank you for
And bye,
coming.
everybody.
Good. Bye.